Hi there, my name is Sean Mudine, and for my research presentation, I chose to talk about Taika Waititi. Uh, all right, here we go. Taika Waititi, or as some would call him, the King of Quirk. So, who is Taika Waititi? Taika Waititi is an Academy and Grammy Award winning New Zealand filmmaker. He was born on August 16th of 1975 to parents Robin Cohen, who was a teacher, and his father, also named Taika Waititi, who was a farmer and an artist. Taika was raised in New Zealand, where his father's Maori roots originate from, and his mother is of Russian and Jewish descent. Taika, surprisingly enough, did not break into the film industry until he was around 30 years old. Before directing his first short film, Two Cars, One Night, he was actually a painter. What films has he directed? Two Cars, One Night was his first short film, followed up by Eagle versus Shark, and then Boy, which is loosely based on his own personal life. He's stated in interviews that some of it is true, and other parts of the film are kind of his imagination, like what he made up about his childhood. What We Do in the Shadows, it's a mockumentary style comedy about this group of vampires living together. Hunt for the Wilder People, also shot in New Zealand. Thor Ragnarok, this was his big breakout film, the first like big budget, like major Hollywood film that he ever did, and it's what most people would probably know him for. Following up that, he did Jojo Rabbit. This film won him his first Oscar, and then most recently, just this past July, we had Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, now we're going to talk about common themes and techniques across his work. The exploration of childhood slash innocence. We see this kind of common theme of childhood and innocence across all of his films, whether it's Jojo Rabbit, which views Nazi Germany through the eyes of a child, or even in the Thor movies. Thor is an alien, he's not from Earth, so it's kind of like a fish out of water story. Even though Thor looks human, compared to the people of Earth, he's very much childlike. A protagonist who is trying to figure out who they are and their place in the world. Um, Again, another common theme amongst most of his films. One especially that comes to mind is the film Boy, the one that is loosely based on his personal life. That film actually opens up with a shot of the main character, whose name is Boy, in front of a whiteboard, and it says, "Who am I?" So that kind of theme stated kind of goes across all of his movies. Uh, Characters who desire to feel like they belong kind of goes with the theme of "Who am I?" A sense of family, even though, or a sense of family, even if it's not through blood. What We Do in the Shadows is kind of this goofy comedy, which is about a collective of vampires all living in the same home, even though none of them are related. It's kind of like this dysfunctional family. Same goes for the Thor movies. At the point in Thor Ragnarok that we meet Thor, he's lost almost all of his blood relatives. The only person he has left is his brother Loki, who's actually adopted, and they're not even related. The main characters are usually a band of misfits and outcasts, offsetting heavy drama with lighthearted comedy. This is something we see a lot. He actually gets criticized for it at times, especially in his latest film, Thor: Love and Thunder, A couple negative reviews talked about the offsetting of heavy drama with lighthearted comedy, but that's something that kind of goes across all of his work as well. And then a technique he likes to use on set, Taika Waititi encourages improvisation. He's even gone on the record stating that Thor Ragnarok was 80% improv. And then I'm not going to play these two videos, but in the first one, it's Taika basically talking about his experience directing What We Do in the Shadows. Him and his good friend spent about 10 years working on the script, but when they actually got ready to shoot it, they barely used it at all. Most of the actors, they basically just told most of the actors how the scene was supposed to begin and how it was supposed to end, and basically they left it all up to them to kind of fill in the blanks. And the second clip we have here is some of the actors from Thor Ragnarok just kind of talking about Taika's process and how he likes to improv on set and the kind of artistic freedom that that gives them. So, what his films mean to me personally. I chose Taika for this presentation because he's one of my favorite filmmakers working today. My first exposure with him was to Thor Ragnarok. Growing up, I was a huge Marvel fan. Loved to go see all the new movies when they came out, but Thor Ragnarok in particular really blew me away when it first came out because it was unlike any comic book movie I've ever seen before. The comedy, the just kind of outright ridiculousness of it all, just kind of really broke the rules of the genre at the time and kind of redefined what a comic book movie could be. Um, After watching his take on Thor, I went back and visited some of his older movies like Boy, What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People. Boy and What We Do in the Shadows ended up being some of my favorites. Um, Specifically, Boy really focused on his New Zealand heritage, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. My favorite Taika Waititi film, though, is gotta be Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit is about a young boy growing up in Nazi Germany who is struggling to find his place in the world, one of the themes we talked about earlier. So, like most little kids, he makes up an imaginary friend. Only this imaginary friend is Hitler, and Taika Waititi himself plays Hitler in this movie. The movie's got a lot of heart. A lot of the heart of this movie comes from Scarlett Johansson, who plays the kid's mother in this movie. One of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen is this scene where the boy is walking through kind of the town square of where he lives, and he sees the shoes of his mother dangling. His mother had just been hung, and it kind of takes him a second to realize, and then you see it click in his head that that's his mom, and then you see him hug her legs. It's a heartbreaking scene, but it's just like it's so well done. Contributions to the film industry. Taika Waititi was amongst one of the first filmmakers that Marvel hired that was an indie filmmaker previous to taking on this kind of big budget Hollywood blockbuster. Since then, he kind of with the success of that movie, he opened the doors for directors like Chloe Zhao, Kate Shortland, and Destin Daniel Cretton to kind of take these indie filmmakers and bring them onto these big budget films. Um, some other contributions he's really made strides with indigenous people in Hollywood. He likes to cast a lot of people of New Zealand, give people from his home a chance to shine. Um, he changed the way that a lot of people think about comic book movies. And like I said before, he kind of redefined what a comic book movie could be. Um, while most of his work is, for the most part, critically beloved, there are a lot of people who think that his humor is over the top. He's got a very specific sense of humor, so it's not for everybody. But A lot of people will say he can't focus on a serious moment for too long without breaking the tension with a joke of some kind. And then finally, we have how Taika's ethnicity and culture influences his films. To as far back as his first short film, Taika shined a light on his home country of New Zealand, as I said before. In an interview with TIFF, he stated, quote, "I think the only authentic way you can tell a story from a particular place is to get someone from that place, someone who knows that place and knows the culture, to tell it. His culture is on full display in the film Boy, which follows a young kid, and he meets his father for the first time, who is of Maori descent, just like Taika is in real life. His father isn't exactly who he dreamed it would be. Again, like I said before, it's somewhat autobiographical, but it's mostly about his childhood. The film became the highest grossing New Zealand film locally. Taika, aside from being part Maori on his father's side, is also part Jewish on his mother's side. After reading the novel Caging Skies, his mother actually recommended that he adapt it into a movie, and that's what eventually became Jojo Rabbit. The book and the film differ quite a bit. Basically, just the main part of it that he wanted to adapt was um, the child's best friend or imaginary friend being Hitler. And the book was much darker than the movie. He gave it that kind of comedic flair that's not in the book. And the film dives deep into the horror that the Jews had to endure during the Holocaust while viewing it through the lens of a child. And yeah, that wraps up the PowerPoint. But yeah, Taika Waititi, one of my favorite filmmakers working today in Hollywood. I already had a lot of background knowledge on him, but upon doing further research, I learned a lot. And yeah, I really like the assignment, and I've really liked the class overall the whole year. So thanks.